Right, I better do the sound check. There was a very near disaster a few moments ago. I went to make my cuppa and found I'd run out of tea bags. I had to dash out to the shop to get it. Anyway, that's as may be. If you can hear this and you can see me, if you can do the usual and stick a comment in the live chat, then I know everything's working and we're ready to go in 7 minutes and 25 seconds. I will see you then. Hello, good evening. It's good to be back with you after the almost enforced break last Sunday due to snow and injury, and me not wanting to take the risk of taking the car out in the snow up a steep hill with a damaged knee. Anyway, we're here tonight, and thank you for joining us. Got an interesting show for you tonight, all about film noir photography. Now, you may be able to see that I've got a little bit of stubble at the moment. That's because of the play that I'm in, Gaslight, which opened last night. Went very well first night, very pleased with it. And I want to just give a very public thank you to two members who are watching tonight, Gary and Terry, for their help with the photography on that. Since I can't photograph myself when I'm on stage, I have to get somebody else to do it, and they did a great job, and the theatre is very happy with the images that they produced. So thank you guys, and well, I've got 6 days, 7 more performances to do of it. So anyway, enough of Gaslight. If you are local, it's worth going to see Chad's Theatre, chads.co.uk. You can book your tickets through there. So, right, let's move on and talk about what's on the show tonight. Tonight, as I say, it's film noir is what I'm going to be talking about. It's a pre-recorded section because I wanted to actually show you that type of photography underway in the studio. So that's all pre-recorded. I've got another one of my Affinity Photo tutorials as well, and tonight we are looking all about dodge, burn and sponge tools within there, and it's a tutorial showing you how to use those, how they work. We have got, as ever, image feedback. I'll be doing the Facebook ones last and the emailed ones first, as usual. And then finally, I will reveal this week's image of the week. So it is interactive. Please say hi in the live chat. I've just seen Bob join, so hi Bob on there. And anybody else who joins us, please do say hello. Otherwise, it's an empty room I'm talking to. It's nice to know who's on the other end of all this. But chat amongst yourselves as well, and ask questions. Particularly ask questions next week. I've got a special show lined up next week. In case you haven't realised, this is my 99th in Studio Live. So it's the big 100 next Sunday evening. A little bit more about that later. But if you've got any questions, then do let me have them for that show, because I want to do a nice big Q&A on there. I've got something a little bit special lined up for that. So right, let's have a look at the images which were emailed to me this week. And as ever, please email them to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk. And I give preference to the emailed images because I can give better feedback on them, to be perfectly honest with you. Higher resolution, usually got the shooting data in there. And so let's just get on with it, shall we? Right, so here we are. And I've got images from Gary Platt to start with, and one from Peter Church. So let's have a look at Gary's images on here. It looks like there's several, but they'll all come through fairly quickly actually on these. So the first one is, this is an image of a theatre in Venice, and I believe it's a multi-shot image where the various bits are combined together into a panorama, and the detail on that is looking great. I can't see, as Eric Morecambe might say, I can't see the joins, which is what you hope for with a panorama like this. And let's just have a look at the peoples in there on their phone. Oh no, they're not on the phones. That's the guided tour things, isn't it? On it. I was saying you were very unlucky to get everyone on the phone. Yeah, that just looks nice. It's a really good image. the only thing I would question on something like this is I'd be tempted to have taken a little bit more, to have got the a bit more of the stage in, and then I might be tempted just to straighten things up a little bit on there with it. But lovely looking theatre. Boy, would I love to play to do a show in a theatre looking like that. That would be fantastic. Another Venetian image from Gary, a night shot. Now, you know what I'm going to say on this, folks. This is just a little bit after the magic 20 minutes. In fact, Venice, a little bit further south, is probably going to be near like 15 minutes. There, 15 minutes after the official sunset time when you want, because the highlights are just a fraction blown out on there with it. I think Gary's tried to recover a lot of it in post, but it'd have been nice to have a little bit more colour in the sky, I think, with that. So I'm not going to say anything much more about it, because it's stuff I've said many a time. Not sure about this one. I don't know Venice, so I don't know whether the bridge itself is significant, but it doesn't say anything to me, this particular image. It does nothing for me in terms of what it's trying to convey, unless it's a famous location within Venice that I'm not aware of. We've got the white sky drawing the eye away from the bridge. We've got some distracting graffiti. I've seen a lot better from you, Gary, to be perfectly honest on that. And the edge here kind of spoils the view of it as well. I wouldn't call that portfolio worthy, is my honest opinion on it. So sorry about that. Right, now, Peter will be watching this on catch up. He posted 3 versions of this image to the Facebook group, and he'd processed and come in a little bit tight crop on there, and I looked at it and thought, not 100% convinced by the processed versions. I actually quite liked the unprocessed version that he'd posted. So I asked him to supply me with the raw file, and I would do my processing on here. Now, looking at this, first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to enable the highlight clippings on there to make sure I don't overexpose anything. I'm going to use the exposure slider. Let me go full screen as well so you can see what's going on. I'm going to use the exposure slider just to lighten the whole thing up. And I'm keeping an eye on that. Nothing's clipped on there. So I think that's more like what it should be. Have I gone a little bit too far? Maybe. But that's looking quite good on there. It just needs a little bit of brightening. Now, with your version, Peter, it tended to be just, it felt just a little over contrasty in there. Now, the image itself is very slightly soft. Looking at the lens on there, yeah, it's an 18-300 lens. Now, those lenses, because they cover such a huge range, do have a habit of not being quite as tack sharp as they could be. So some of the softness will come from that. Now, having said all that, that's only noticed when I come in to this sort of zoom level. Now, you wanted to do a crop really coming quite tight on the squirrel, and I think your crop was probably something like that was what you did. Now, because we've thrown away a lot of pixels on there, that slight softness becomes a bit more obvious with it. In fact, I'm just going to bring that down a little bit more because we've got a little bit of green creeping in there. So I think it was something like that, which is a long way in on the image. And looking at it, the focus point's actually on the pores here. if possible, try and get on the eyes. Now, what I notice about is you are shooting with an 18 to 300mm lens, which is fine, but you're only at 110mm. So for this shot, with that really tight crop on there, I would have zoomed in camera rather than trying to do it in post-production. Now, having said all that, if you've gone up to 300mm, you need to make sure you're on either on tripod, which is tricky when you're doing wildlife like this, or your shutter speed is at 1/300th of a second on there. So that would be my advice, is get a tripod. For this sort of thing, I recommend the trigger ball heads, which you can move the camera very quickly and then release it and it's locked into place. And that might have been the solution for it on there. But it is a good shot. I don't think it needs much in extra processing. I might give it a little bit of extra clarity, but not too much at all on it. I mean, even that is about as far as I would want to go on the clarity with it. And I think that's a much more try and keep it natural, particularly with wildlife, rather than sort of oversaturate and overdo the clarity on there. I'm normally one who, if you've been following me for a while, you'll know I do tend to like things quite vibrant on my images, and this will take up to probably about 20 on there, but I wouldn't go any further with it. Yeah, biggest bit of advice, just zoom in. So let's go back to the grid. Now, the next set are a set of images from, actually, Gaslight, the play that I'm in, and the image here is of Mr. Manningham, the husband in the production, and nice image from Gary. Good shot of Mr. Manningham. And what Gary's done is because it's a Victorian setting to it, he's produced 3 different versions of an aged photo using this. So here's the first one. And we can see here there's a vignetting effect around the outside with it, that lightening on there. Now, what I don't know about these, and Gary, maybe you can fill in the chat on this, is I presume this was an effect that you used as it was, without rather than something that you've built up yourself. My only sort of little bit of a complaint about this one is looking at the vignetting effect on it. It's not quite consistent either side. This side seems quite square and then quite rounded on this side with it. I like the fact that the scratches go all over with it, because that is much more convincing in terms of an aged photo. The next one, you'll see what I mean here, this is very clearly a digital effect that's been put on, and by a weird coincidence, all these folds and scratches just sort of disappear over where the person's face is, and that makes the image look very unreal. It looks manipulated doing it like that. Now, again, I don't know how much control you've got over the overlays and the things on there, but if you've got the whole thing, what you've done is brushed in a mask to hide and reveal, I would be tempted to make sure some of them go over there to make sure it is more even. And this part really doesn't look right, where, well, there's nothing there in there, and it just sort of fades out. So that, to my mind, is probably I would say it's not convincing to me. Again, this one's a little bit better than that, because it's not unreasonable for one side to get the most damage on there with this sort of thing. Again, it does look a little bit almost fortunate that there's nothing over the face when the rest of the image is that damaged. So I would probably have gone with something like this one, but again, if I've got the control to apply in a little bit of the damage from this into this section, so the whole thing looks aged on there. But again, it depends how you've achieved it, and that I don't know. So that is the feedback on the emailed images this week on there. So let's head back over and see what's been going on in the chat. Right, Gary says it is photoshopped using 2 layers of texture and scratches. Yeah, so as I said, on those second 2, use that layer of those scratches, get some into the middle part because they look fake. Whereas the first one is almost convincing on that. So the first one is by far the most convincing because the scratches do go all the way through on it. With that. So, yeah, oh, and a couple of people have joined us. So hello Bernard, hello Richard, who've joined while I've been doing the feedback on there. So, moving along. Let's move on to our Affinity tutorial this week. And again, I'm trying to, I'll explain a bit more about this next week, but things like these sort of tutorials, I'm now starting to pre-record them so that I can really shorten the length of them and make a better video out of them rather than trying to do it live. It's easier to do it live, to be perfectly honest with you, but it's more reliable and I think you get a better video by pre-recording it. So this week it's the dodge, burn and sponge tools I'm going to be looking at. So let's roll VT and I'll play in the video. Join you back here once it's over. Hello, welcome to another Affinity Photo tutorial. This time we are looking at the dodge, burn and sponge tools. So let's head over into Affinity. The photo I'm working on is of 3 parasols in Saint Martin in the Caribbean, and the problem with the image is that the sky is a little bit too bright, it's not as saturated as I would like, and we've got deeper areas under the parasols and under the sun loungers, which I'd like to lighten up just a little bit. So the tools we're using are here: dodge brush, burn brush and sponge brush. Now these are all named after techniques from the darkroom days, where you would literally prevent light from hitting sections of an image, or you would put extra light on there to burn in, or use a sponge to affect certain parts of the image as well. The digital versions of them are quite straightforward. The dodge brush lightens areas, the burn brush will darken areas, and the sponge tool will increase the saturation or decrease the saturation on your image. So we're going to start off with the sky. We want to make it a little bit darker, so I'm going to use the burn brush tool. In my previous video, I explained about brushes. So if you haven't seen that already, I recommend you take a look at it. The link is somewhere up there. In terms of the settings, I want quite a large brush for this, so I'm using the square bracket key to do that, and we want a very soft brush, so set the hardness down to 0, And then opacity and flow. Now, there's lots of different ways you can work with these, and it's really down to personal preference. For this image, one of the ways I would like to work on it is to use around about a 50% opacity. So I'm going to set it to 50% on there. And I'm going to keep the flow down low, around about 10%. And what that will allow me to do is, the opacity means I don't get the full effect of the burn tool, and the flow allows me to really build it up by going over and over with a single mouse click over the area. If I still want to go darker after that, I can release the mouse click and go over it again. So it gives me a lot of control over what I'm doing. Before I start painting on the canvas, I'm going to duplicate my image so that I can do a before and after. So Control and J gives me a duplicate. I will work on the top version of that. Now I can take the brush with the settings I've chosen, and I can start to paint in. And as I go over it, you should start to see things begin to darken in these areas. And I prefer to do it this sort of way, where I take my time just to build in the darkness gradually and bring out those details. And just do it slowly until it all starts to come into play. Take the brush down a little bit just to capture the sections down here. And I quite like having this area here quite dark there, almost as though it's the underside of the clouds, or maybe a little bit of rain cloud coming in. And you can see I've brought in most of the detail now of those clouds, which weren't there before. Before and after, quite straightforward. If I just turn off this layer, you can see before and after how I've brought in that extra detail on the cloud area. So now with that layer still active, I'm going to next try and bring in lighten up the shadows down below the parasols. For that, I'm going to use the dodge tool. Because of the effect of this, I like to have a slightly higher flow for this. So I'm going to go up to, let's say 30%, which means I get a little bit more through. So again, I can now start painting on here and go over it a few times and just do multiple passes, releasing the mouse occasionally to allow me to start up a new layer on there, and a little bit over here, bring it along. And it's actually quite tricky to see the effect of it. Make the brush a little bit smaller so I can concentrate just on the darker areas of this, and particularly underneath those sun loungers. Really want to lighten those bits up on there. And of course under the parasols as well, particularly the blue one and the green. Try and bring that out and bring a little bit more of that red one out there. Again, we can see the effect of this by just turning off that top layer and seeing the original image underneath. So looking at the parasols, and you can see particularly with the blue how I've lightened that up. A little bit more over here on the green parasols and the red parasols. Let's try and get those darker areas a bit lighter than they were. So again, before and after on there, you can see how that's had an effect. And the eye is now drawn more to those loungers. But the sky could do with being a little bit more saturated. So that's where our third tool comes in, which is the sponge brush tool. And what that does is it allows us to add in a little bit of saturation to the image. We've got options to either saturate or desaturate, and we can use either vibrance or HSL saturation. So what's the difference between them? Well, saturate and desaturate is very obvious. So I want to add saturation. So I click on that, already selected actually. And Vibrance is the intelligent saturation, where it tries to protect skin tones. It tries to just deal with the desaturated areas. So it's the sort of clever version of saturation. So that's probably sufficient for what we want. Again, I'm going to work with a large brush, so the square bracket key, and I should be able to start just painting in a little bit of vibrance over on this blue sections. And you can see it is just getting that little bit more saturated as I carry on with this, and just try and bring in a bit of saturation there. Now perhaps I think a little bit on the sea as well. Don't need to put much on there, but just a fraction. But I would like to make the beach look more of that golden colour. So again, over here, just go over it a few times, and you can see how I'm building up that little bit of extra saturation there. Release the mouse, and I can go again, and that will just keep adding saturation and painting it in like that. So now again, let's look at the before and after with this. And there you can see that saturation's come in, that brightness has come in, and that's our final image. But have you noticed there's a problem with this image? It's not a bad edit, and it's showing you how to do it, but you can see underneath those loungers that the sand has got a little bit brighter than perhaps it should. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to deal with that. The next video is all on the topic of non-destructive ways of doing dodge and burn. Here's the playlist for all the Affinity ones and the video, so I'll see you in there. So thanks for watching, and until then, keep making great photos. Bye for now. Right, okay, so we're back live in the studio. That's the tutorial for this week on Affinity. People seem to be quite keen for me to carry on with those, so I'm aiming to release an Affinity tutorial once a week at the moment. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about this sort of thing in next week's live stream on that. So let's move on. Nothing new in the chat. Just a moment to thank my sponsors, which as ever is yourselves. I have a Buy Me a Cuppa link in the description down below, so if you find this helpful and you want to support the live stream, then feel free to buy me a cuppa. That was a near disaster tonight, as I had to dash out and go and buy some tea bags. I'd already started the countdown and went to make my cuppa and realised there was no tea bags. Rushed out to the local shop and got some just before the show started. Right, anyway, tonight's cuppa, my thanks go to Robin Cotton. I don't know whether you're watching these, but if you are, cheers Robin, much appreciated. And another way you can help the show, I say this each time, subscribe, like and share. My thanks to everyone who does share the links to the show, and my thanks to everyone who is subscribed, and hit that like button. There's 12 of you watching, and only 4 of you have hit the like button. So go and hit it for me, would you please? No excuses. Right. And as ever, the Facebook group and newsletter links are down below. So our theme for tonight, film noir studio photography. And again, I've done this as a pre-recorded section. You'll see why in a moment, because there's no way I could do this completely live. But what is film noir? It's really a black and white style. It's that very sort of contrasty look, very directional lighting, deep shadows in there. If you think of the sort of Humphrey Bogart 1930s, 1940s movies, those black and white movies, that's your film noir sort of style of photography. So how do we create that in the studio? Well, I had Paula join me last week in the studio for a few hours, and she kindly allowed me to create some video of the shoot, explaining the techniques and showing how I set the lights up, complete with lighting diagrams, the whole lot. So I hope you find it helpful, folks, and here's the video. Good morning, I'm down at the studio setting up for my shoot today. It's a film noir, Hollywood glamour style shoot with model Paula. Let me just get all the backgrounds and lights in place, and I'll talk to you a little bit later. So that didn't take long. Just a quick overview of this first lighting setup that I'm doing today. I'm going to concentrate mainly on Hollywood glamour for this first set, and traditionally Hollywood glamour would be done with a Fresnel lens, which it gives that lovely sort of shadowy look. I haven't got one, so what I'm using instead is this, which is a beauty dish, but hopefully you can see it. I've put the grid on there instead, and what that will do is the grid will channel the light. It doesn't focus light, but it restricts the light to the right sort of direction, and it gives an effect that's actually quite similar to the classic Hollywood glamour look. Now, what about the other lights? Well, all the way over here I've got a hair light, a rim light, which will come in and just give some separation here on this side of Paula, our model, and the other light is a background light. Now, I may not use the background light, and if I do, I'll want it on a really, really low power. I've put the purple background up because I'm aiming to throw it to almost black, but just leave that little hint of colour in there for the colour images. A lot of what I'm going to do, because it's Hollywood glamour, it's going to be black and white anyway, but having the option with the background light just to create a little pool of lightness on the background will add some extra interest to the shoot. So that's the first setup. All I need now is a model. My model for today has arrived, and would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Paula.
Nice to meet you, Paula. It's the first time we've worked together. I'm really looking forward to the shoot today. We're going to be doing, as I said earlier, Hollywood glamour, film noir type thing. So how long have you been modelling?
About 2 years.
About 2 years. You enjoying it?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
But it's not just modelling you do?
No, I do a little bit of burlesque and a little bit of amateur dramatics.
Ah, right.
Musicals, plays.
Great. So, have you got any plays lined up at the moment?
Currently in panto.
Oh, no, you're not. Sorry, couldn't resist on that. What are you playing?
I am playing a debt collector in Jack and the Beanstalk.
Oh, right. And where's it on? Where can people come and see you?
That is in Whitworth. In Rochdale. In
Rochdale, right.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so this particular shoot was in response to a casting call that you put up, and you were asking for film noir type stuff. So what sort of things have you got in mind for it?
So I'm thinking anything slightly dark, a little bit edgy, but very glamorous.
Dark, glamorous, edgy. I think we can manage that. During the shoot, I paused a couple of times. You probably didn't notice it on the time lapse, to create what I call setup shots in the studio, and I just want to mention those as we're passing. What they are shots to enable me to know exactly what lighting I did with a particular setup. And the way I do it, I make one change to the camera. Normally it's f8. It's 125th of a second and ISO 100. I just change the shutter speed to 1/10 of a second on the camera, and then do a wide angle shot, which means that I'm capturing the ambient light, but there's sufficient flash going off to freeze our subject, to freeze Paula on there, so I can actually see the effect of the lights, but I can see where the lights are as well. So this is a typical setup shot. Right, so we've moved on to our second set now, and for this one, some of it is similar to the previous setup that I showed you, but what we've introduced the Venetian blind over here, and hopefully you can just about see it on camera. Behind there is a speed light. Now, why do I use a speed light rather than the studio lights? Well, the studio lights have a fairly large light source, which means the shadow from the blind would be very soft, practically indistinguishable. With this, you can actually see it a lot better from a speed light because the light source is very, very small. So that was the first thing I set up, was to put that onto the background, did a test shot, make sure you could see the lines of the blinds on the background. Next, I've added in, or changed the modifier over here. Instead of using the beauty dish, I've now got this strip light. It's got a grid on it, as you can see there, hopefully, just about. And again, the grid just restricts the light so that Paula is lit from one direction instead of the light spreading out. And then finally, over in the back, I've added a hair light or rim light on there, just to add a little bit of separation from the background. And let's face it, if you know my photography, I like rim lighting, so I've put that in there as well. So all those together should create this film noir style look. Now, one other thing just to comment about is the colour palette on this. I'd already decided on using the purple background because I can do a lot with that. But Paula told me that you've got a purple dress, so I asked Paula to change into the purple dress because I'm a big fan of shooting similar colours with the background. So if somebody turns up at the studio dressed in white, I'll shoot them on white, in black on a black background, in purple on my purple background. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to create a range of shots here, black and white for the film noir look, but also I think the adding in the colour versions, purple on purple, will work nicely as well. Yeah, we've changed the lighting setup a little bit for the last part of this set. We've introduced the stool, which means obviously I need to lower the lights. But what I've done with it is we've used the strip light now as our rim lighting on here. The light through the blind has become effectively our key light on there, and so having moved Paula back so that she can be illuminated by it, we've got this nice set of lines from the Venetian blind, those shadows going over her. Now, one tip, if you're using this, ask your subject to look through to where the light is from where they are. If they can see the light rather than have the blind, one of the slats of the blind over it, if the slat of the blind is over it from their perspective, you're going to get a shadow across the eyes, which is not what we want. The final light over there, which was a rim light, I've repositioned it slightly and moved it a little bit high. I just wanted a bit of extra light on the top of the hat on there. So I think it's about time we moved on to another setup. What do you fancy shooting next?
Whatever you think.
Oh, the get out of jail free card, isn't it? Right, how about, you say you've got some lingerie? Mm-hmm. Okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, and we'll have you probably looking through the blind on that. Okay, so we're back with a new setup, and this is again, we're keeping the Hollywood glamour film noir sort of feel, but this time it's a lingerie shot. Now, what we've changed with the blinds on this is I've got Paula close to the blinds and looking through. I've moved the speed light round so it's pointing straight at her, and we're after this sort of really quite a distinct shadow look across the face. Now, again, it's important that if you're shooting this style, that you get your subject to look through the blinds towards the flash, so that you don't get the shadow across the eyes. Now, the other light is the strip light here, gridded strip light. I've moved it round. Again, it's still acting as this rim light. It's just providing a little bit of light on the hair and to bring out the detail of the fur coat. So, with all that in play, I'm going to grab my camera and we're going to make some shots. Okay, I've got to redo the ending on this. Unfortunately, someone left the camera in the wrong mode, and instead of recording the video, I recorded a time-lapse of me doing the final video. I want to say thanks to Paula for all her work on the shoot, and thank you for letting me video the shoot as well. I hope you as the viewers found the video helpful. Maybe the lighting setups that you've seen here are ones you can replicate with your own studio photography. If you do, please share your photos in my Facebook group, linked down below. And until next time, thanks for watching. Keep making great photos. And I'm left with the Jack Daniels. It's cold tea, by the way. I don't drink, certainly not whiskey, don't like whiskey. Come to that, I don't like cold tea either. Bye. Right, and we're back. As I said at the end of the video there, I hope you found it helpful, and I hope it gives you some ideas for your own studio photography about different styles that you might want to consider shooting. Within the studio. And that whole shoot that we had was, I think it was only about 2 to 3 hours that we were actually shooting there. So everything's compressed down, obviously, in time-wise on there. So let's move on to feedback on your images, the ones which have been posted to the Facebook group over the last, 2 weeks actually. So let me head over to Lightroom and I'll have a chat about those. So here we are. Right, just one from John Barton this week that I picked up on. And it's this one, Blackpool and his drone. I actually quite like this one, John. I think you've got, you're ticking most of the boxes with it. The pier just on the edge there, I think acts as a nice lead into it, nice focal point with the drone at this point. If I was doing anything with it, I would possibly just make it a little bit more panorama lights. And actually I can now see that same old problem. Get the horizon straight on there. I'd probably do something a little bit like that with it, because I think the top section of it wasn't adding much, whereas I think that does. It also means now coming in from this corner, we've got a lead in across there. So I think that's just a nicer crop on that one for you, John. Now, a set of images from Richard Lovelock. Absolutely stunning shots of these kingfishers. I am in awe of being able to create shots like this. So I wouldn't even know where to begin on something like that. So all I can say is just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I rather like this one. I love the shallow depth of field on it, and how that just makes it work on there. I bet there's no EXIF information. It'll have been stripped out. Yeah, it's all been stripped out by Facebook, unfortunately. But it's tack sharp on there, and just an incredible shot, Richard. What more can I say? And this one as well, this is a fun one. The actual capturing of it is something that you don't normally see. So I particularly like this. Just seeing the kingfisher coming out of the water with its catch, and I think it's just stunning. You've got the shutter speed obviously fast enough to freeze everything with it, and I'm guessing you've done some noise reduction in post-production, but it's very, very well done on there. So yeah, that's all I can say is brilliant. Anthony, I don't think you're watching tonight. I hope you'll get the chance to see it on playback. Night shots. I've said this a few times on the live stream. I don't know whether it's ones that you've watched. About the best time for the night shots is about 20 minutes after the official sunset time, and that window lasts for about 20 minutes. So here you can see we're just a little bit overexposed on the lights. It's not too bad actually, and I think you've adjusted it enough just to keep it in there. But I would just try a little bit more on this. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring the blacks down just a little bit more on there. I'll just take these off just to give it a bit more of that sort of bite to it. I'm just going to add a little bit more clarity, and I'm going to try bringing those highlights down just a bit more with it. Now I'm also just going to try playing around a little bit with the white balance on it to try and find a match that looks best with it. And in fact it's pretty good where it was, bang in the middle on there. I like the fact that it comes in on both sides with it. Works well. Now I thought at first this was a chemtrail off there, but I'm now thinking it's the laser light, so I wouldn't want to remove that from the image because of that. But yeah, nice shot. Just wonder about a little bit of contrast, a little bit more contrast. Nah. If I do, it's very, very slight on there. So nice image, Anthony. Well done. Sonia, nice one of the. I really ought to write down what these creatures are before I pull them up for comment. But yeah, it's a nice shot, nicely in focus on there. This underwater macro stuff that you do is just incredible. So thank you for sharing. Now, a couple more from Anthony. First attempt at doing candle photography. Now, it's a little bit overexposed, and unfortunately, I don't know what camera you're using for this to make it work, but it just feels as though that's a little bit odd at the background, too black on there. I might even be tempted to try a tighter crop with this, just to try and make it work a little bit better. So something like that, where now we've just got a hint of something in those shadows. Maybe just bring that up slightly, highlights down a little bit. So now we've just got that hint that there's something there on the shot. I think works a little bit better with it. The problem with photographing candles is the dynamic range. If you don't know what the dynamic range is, I've got a video on that in my on my YouTube site, on the site here. Just go hunt for that one and I explain it. And in fact, one of the photos I use to explain dynamic range is a candle shot, so it's possibly worth you having a look at that one. And that's the problem. You have to decide what is it I actually want to get the exposure right for, and then do the exposure for that. And with something like this, I would say you need to expose such that you've just got this little amount of detail in the background, and then accept you're probably going to blow out, you're probably going to get the candle overexposed. Now, I'll give you another tip, and I should have got the photo ready to show on here, but if I'm doing a candle shot like this, I would often cheat it, and I would add in an extra light source to make it look as though that's the light that the candle's creating. I've done it with a photograph of a model holding a candle, and we actually put in a lot of speed lights, I think we used, just to illuminate her, and we matched the colour to the colour of the candle, made it really orange light, so that it looked like it was the light coming from the candle when in fact it wasn't. The other tip to say about candle photography is often what photographers do with their candles in room settings, where it's just it's part of the context, is they photograph the flames independently, and then in the room they'll light it as though with other light sources, as I say, to make it look as though the candles are lit, but actually blow them out, and then Photoshop in the individual flames. Now people have sort of collections of candle flames that they'll just drop in there, and that's because if you've got more than one candle in a shot, often one of them will be sputtering, and they're not all perfect candle flame shapes. So the trick is light it, blow it out, so that you've got the dark wick in there, and then you can just Photoshop onto it. Here's the other one, which I quite like. Same sort of problem with it. We just need to try and recover some of those highlights. It's difficult to do it here on a JPEG, and I'm just going to try and bring a little bit more of the detail into those shadow areas. Maybe I can try and bring that up. Then hopefully the bits I've overexposed I can bring back down again with that. So I think something like that. I think this is the better of the two shots. With it, I'm just trying to straighten everything up. Yeah, it's because you're looking down on it. I would be tempted to lower the the camera height a little bit, but not by much on there to make that work. Gary, nice montage. I believe you found a facility in Photoshop to do this. I was looking for it and I haven't found it yet. When I do find it, I might do a tutorial on how to do that. It works really well. And what works with this, let me just take those highlight warnings off, is the images you've chosen, the colour palette on it, the red, white and black, red, white, black and gold, I should say, on here. Those predominant colours, they all work really well together. So well chosen on the images. They work nicely with the crops that you've got on there. So yeah, really good montaging. I shall have to find out how that was done on that. So that's it for that. Nothing new in the chat. So we will just move. Oh no. Hang on, we do have, right, that was strange, because when I first did it, it didn't show up with the new information in chat. Right, okay, right, DxO, let's put this up so you can all see. DxO optics for the noise reduction and the sharpening from Richard. Yeah, makes sense. And S numbers 1 wants to know how long Richard had to wait for the kingfishers. I don't know how long he had to wait, but I do know it's a place that he goes to, and they're known to come there, and I think somebody feeds them to try and get them into that locale with that. So yeah, maybe I was cheating, really. Yeah, no, it's a load of rubbish, Richard. You've just cheated with them. It's no good. You have to try again. No, they're brilliant. They really are. Right. So moving on, we're just at the end, and I've kept it within the hour on there. So member photo of the week. I don't think this will come of any surprise. It has to be one of the kingfishers, doesn't it, this week? So well done, Richard. Thank you for submitting it. And that's what it will look like as the banner for the coming week. I've flipped it again because of where my logo goes. So thank you for submitting. I'll change the image very shortly. And to everyone else, keep posting your images to the Facebook group. Maybe it'll be your image next week. And talking of next week is the 100th show, the amazing 100th live stream. I can't believe it myself that I've got to that. When I started this, I just thought, oh, I'll possibly do one or two. I'll not keep it up for very long. So I'm pleasantly surprised to have got there. Now, a couple of things. I'm going to do a bit of a special show next week, and I'm going to look back over the 100 shows. It's a good excuse to probably play in one or two little bits and pieces on there. Nothing too long. I am also going to be announcing some quite significant changes to what I do with the live stream and the YouTube channel. I'm not going to say any more than that at this point, but things are going to be changing, and there are lots of reasons behind it. I will explain it all next week, but I'm also going to have hopefully a special guest on the show to join me for the 100th show celebrations on there. So do join us next week for that. I'm looking forward to it. It's a lot. I've got a lot of work to do this week to get ready for that show for what I want to do with it. If you've got any images you want feedback on, then please send them to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk, and I think I might get my special guest to help with the feedback next week as well on that. And also post to the Facebook group as well if you've got images. I'll go through some of those, but please email if you can, because that's the better option on there. So thank you folks for watching. I've kept it under the hour, and I'll see you next week. And if you're in the area and haven't booked tickets yet for Gaslight to see me playing Inspector Ruff or Sergeant Ruff or just Ruff, yeah, there's a bit of doubt over what his actual title is. Anyway, if you're in the area, I'd love to see you come to the show, and if you do, meet me in the bar afterwards, and we'll have a chat and a drink. Okay, so until next week, thanks for watching folks, and keep making great photos. See you next week.